Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we're bringing you a Kickstarter preview. This one's for a game called Overbooked. It is a 1 to 4 player strategy abstract style game, but it takes place with airlines.
Yeah, this is all about that horrible trip that you took to the airport and you couldn't find a seat. Well, in this one, you're in charge of the airline, or the airplane at least.
Yeah.
And you're trying to basically manage the passengers onto the seats in the plane.
Yeah, now I have to be 100% honest. The reason why we took this Kickstarter is because of the theme. This is such a unique theme.
Yeah.
You don't see many things in the board game industry that use airlines, and it uses kind of a, as you said, like a Tetris strategy style gameplay mechanism, which you're trying to take these different types of passengers and put them into your rows and score victory points for them. Now, there's 5 different types of passengers in the game, which are represented by these round discs.
Yeah, these are the passengers, and some of them are friends.
Yeah.
You know, so friends want to sit together, right?
Yep.
And then you've got also couples.
Yeah.
And finally, if you've ever been on an airline, kids.
Yeah. So the couples are your red ones, your white ones are your children, and then your 3 other colors, blue, green, and yellow, are your friends. Now, each player is going to be given a player board. If you're playing with 4 players, you'll play with one side. You'll note that on these player boards, you have rows of passengers with aisles and then windows on the side. On the other side, for 2 to 3 player games, you have 3 sections with 2 aisles and 2 sets of windows. That's going to be very important in the game because it's going to depend on how you draft particular cards.
Exactly.
Each player is also going to start with 6 vouchers. These vouchers allow you to kind of break the rules and how you're drafting cards within the game. You'll be giving up vouchers, you'll be collecting vouchers. At the end of the game, they're worth victory points the more vouchers that you have. And then you have your passenger cards. There's a variety of different passenger cards. There's 4 of them, no matter the number of players. They're laid out. You have the deck on the far left, and then you have 4 different passenger seats. Players are going to be drafting these and then using these to place the passengers that they represent into their airline.
Yeah, of course, basically, that sounds easy, except for the fact that there's a lot of interesting scoring involved. Because as you place these passengers, some are going to score some ways, some are going to score in groups, obviously the friends or something like that you want to get together. But all these cards are very different and unique, and it does really bring about that sort of memory of Tetris or things like that, because you pick these things up, you're sitting there rotating them, figuring out how they're going to fit into the seats that you have left on the plane.
Yeah, so the game is extremely easy to play. And the moment you start playing this, you may think to yourself, wow, this is super simple. It's not hard at all. But as you progressively get into the game, you realize the challenge and how hard it is to place things in the right area. So here's how the turns work. On your turn, you're allowed to pick any one of the tiles that you so wish, or cards that you so wish. The first one, or the furthest one away from the deck, is absolutely 100% free. You just take it and you use those passengers. However, each one that you want to go up and take, you can use a voucher. So say, for instance, I really wanted to take this particular card. I'd place a voucher here, and I would place a voucher here, and then I would take this particular card. Now, when you take the card, it tells you exactly where on your airline you can place these particular passengers. So you would immediately draw the passengers that are represented on that particular card, and then you can rotate this card any way you so wish with a couple different things. 1, you cannot stretch over an aisle.
Right.
Number 2, you have to place every single passenger that is represented on this card, no matter what. You can play a passenger over top of another previously placed passenger, but if you do so, that previously placed passenger becomes overbooked and gets placed into this area, which are negative points at the end of the game.
Right, so just like any good puzzle game, like Jeremy said, it starts out pretty easy because you're going to take a card, you're going to take a second card, you can put those in.
Yeah.
But what you've got to keep in mind is you want to set up what you're going to be doing for the rest of the game, because then you'll see all 4 cards out there and you're not sure exactly how any of them are going to work without potentially having some overbooked passengers.
At the end of your turn, once you've placed your passengers, any cards that have a gap will slide over, a new card will come in, and then the next player in turn order is again allowed to pick anyone they so wish. If they take one with a voucher on it, they get to receive that voucher. But the same thing goes for that player. If they want to take any card past the first card, they too will leave vouchers on those to be able to take that card. Now, some of the cards aren't patterns with particular passengers on them. They actually have aisles or center rows or windows on them, which denotes that you have to place that particular passenger in that particular area, but it gives you the freedom of placing anywhere that you wish.
Any aisle, any window.
And not following any particular pattern within the game. And you're going to keep doing this round after round, overbooking passengers in some case, trying to get particular types of passengers together until one thing happens, and that is with any one of the 5 different types of passengers is depleted 100%.
Right.
That marks the end of the game. You finish out the round, and then you score up the points.
Yeah, there's a lot of player control like that. So any given player, you could go rush after the couples, the red pieces, and end the game as quickly as you can. Of course, this depends on what cards come out, but you're allowed to make that choice. Same thing with player control on the vouchers.
Yeah.
You could get into a situation where you've spent a lot of your vouchers, and then your opponents will take advantage of that because you're only going to be able to take one card if you have no vouchers.
Yeah, which could cause you to overbook a huge amount of your passengers that you've previously placed.
Let's talk about the scoring.
Yeah, so the score for a variety of different things within the game. Every single passenger that you have placed up on your board, I'm just throwing some random ones out here, you get a point for, no matter where they are or who they are.
Right.
You score 1 point for every single passenger. And then you score for your couples. Your couples are your red ones. Any 2 couples that are adjacent to one another, not split by an aisle, and do not have any other couples around them will score you 5 victory points. So in this case, if you look at this player board here, this scores 0 victory points. But if this couple is separated by a space, this one here will score 5 victory points because they're together.
Yeah, I think thematically that represents the jealousy between couples. Maybe a husband looking across the aisle.
Yes. And then you will score extra points for all of your friends that are together. You're going to look at your largest groupings of each of the 3 different colored friends within the game. And you're going to score extra points for any of those that are together. So for instance, if this blue section is my highest blue section of 4, I would score an extra 4 victory points. But you will also compare that against everybody at the table. If you have more than everybody else at the table, those become 2 points extra instead of just 1. So those are going to score for your, again, for your blue, your greens, and your yellows.
And then finally, it's the kids.
Yeah.
In this game, unlike real life, everyone wants to sit around the kids.
Yeah.
Because the kids will score as long as they're surrounded on orthogonally by any other colors.
Yep.
So you basically surround the kids, and then you're going to score 3 points for that child.
If you're lucky enough to be able to fill up an entire section of the plane, that's 1 section here and 1 section here in a 4-player game, that's an 8 extra victory points for you as well. And then, of course, every single overbooked passenger is going to score you -2, and if you have the most at the table, you get another -2 points, period. And then you're going to score half a point for every voucher that you have left over. Score them up, that's it. Extremely easy game to play, but it's one of those very deceptive games that the more that you get into the rounds, the more difficult it becomes for the players to adjust that player board and make combinations that make sense.
Right, and the difference between these player boards too on both sides is pretty interesting because in a 4-player game, it actually is made maybe a little bit easier, perhaps, just because there's 1 aisle, and the sections are all 4 rows each. Well, the other side of the board has two sections that are 3 rows and 1 that's 4 rows, so it makes it a little more complicated to deal with some of these cards that come out.
Especially the ones that have 4 sections on them like this one.
Yeah.
You're going to have to play these up and down instead of horizontally. So also note that this is a prototype of the game. I know they're making some changes to the graphic design, probably with some of these. I don't know what other components are going to change. However, as it stands right now, it's a pretty interesting game.
Oh yeah, the graphic design is really good. Really good choice of art. I think one of the big changes they'd mentioned to us is the cards getting updated with some art theme.
Yeah. So guys, that is Overbooked. It can be played as a solo variant as well. Otherwise, it is 2 to 4 players. It takes about 30 minutes in and out. If you guys are interested, go ahead and back it or ask questions below. We'll answer them for you. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, everything else that we do here at Man vs. Meeple, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Season 2 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored in part by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.